Welcome to the Mighty Podcast. My name is Levi Knight, the Youth Programme Coordinator for the Mighty Creatives, and I'm joined by two of our Youth Board members.
Hi, I'm Connor Brown, as Levi said, one of the Youth Board members.
And I'm Shantelle York, also on the Youth Board.
Nice to meet you. We've created this podcast, as a result of our Without Walls event. And at this event, we spoke about topics we felt were important to young people and how we can make change for young people within our areas. Today's topic is going to be mental health. So welcome, guys. How are you?
Yeah, not too bad. My train was delayed like 10 minutes this morning, so I was like, oh God, this is all going to go wrong, but we're here. We made it.
I can't lie, I was a bit worried, man. I was thinking, oh man, please, Connor, I need you, man. You're the guy.
Oh, we're here.
How are you, Shantelle?
Yeah, no, I'm all good.
Nice. So before we start, let's get an introduction, a bit more about who you are and what you do and why you love being part of the Mighty Creatives Youth Board. You hear that loaded question, why you love, so you better love it.
Not leading in the slightest there, no?
So we'll start with you, Connor.
So I do poetry and dabbled in other various bits of writing. The reason I enjoy the Mighty Creatives Youth Board so much is because I took all of that expertise, threw it out the window, and anytime you guys are like, should we try this? I'm like, yeah, sure, why not? And it usually actually works out. So yeah, the amount of testing myself that I do here, and it turns out well. So I'm just here for the ride at this point.
I think we all are, to be fair, in life generally. And I think that's part of being a creative. You've got to go for the ride. You've got to take that leap sometimes.
Oh God, yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think it's about stretching yourself. So yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that. What about you, Shantelle?
Yeah, so I do a bit of everything, really. I think Levi described me as a Swiss Army knife. So that's mainly sort of graphic design, video editing, animation, and yeah, websites, marketing. Yeah, a bit of everything, really. But I love being involved on the Mighty Creatives Youth Board because of the people, I think, and the community is sort of like-minded, young people especially, and I feel like we all have a shared sense of purpose and we're all on a mission to, make a change in the community and for young people. So yeah.
Love that.
I see why you do marketing stuff now. That's
I love that. You know what I mean? I thought, yo, vote for Shantelle. You know what I'm
That's
saying?
it. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
No, but I think that's really good, and I think that's a key theme with the youth board in general. I think it's the people, and I think the mix of the talents that we have and everyone's relationship with one another. I think it's so good. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I'll give a bit about myself. So I do freelance youth work outside of working for the Mighty Creatives. I really enjoy working for the Mighty Creatives and working with the youth board because I feel like we're really making a difference and putting in real change for the next generation. I remember being at school and we used to talk about sustainability and stuff like that, and it'd always be like, it's for the future generations. And I'd be like, shut up, man, what are you on about? I'm here now, but I get it more so now, do you know what I mean? I think it's very important that we try and make things easier and smoother for the next generation. I think that's what you really do, especially with the Without Walls event, where you're trying to make change within the workplace, change with the change makers. So yeah, I think that's really good. I'm going to go into a quick icebreaker as well. So we've got a question here. What book are you reading, or what piece of art have you seen, heard, discovered this week that's had an impact on you? We'll go with you, Shantelle.
Yeah, so I've actually just finished reading a book, and I feel like it actually relates quite nicely to this topic of mental health. And it's How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
Okay.
And it's not a book that I typically would have picked up and read, but I sort of got it as it's part of a set. But it was actually quite interesting, sort of breaking down how to reduce worry or stress. And it's very simple things a lot of the time, but I think it's quite easy to forget. And also the effect that actually it's not just mental health, that it also has physical impacts on you as well. So through fatigue and, tiredness and things like that. So I think that was very interesting and a good read.
I like that. So what was the title of that book again?
How to Stop Worrying and Start Living by Dale Carnegie.
So make sure you check that book out if you get the chance. I like that. What about you, Connor?
I'll say I am a complete creative fraud. I don't read anywhere near as much as I should. So I think the main creativity I consume is music. At this point, what am I listening to? A lot of Baron Olivia, who is she's from the UK and she has like 100k monthly listeners on Spotify. But I'm just like, you know, when you listen to something and you're just like, yeah, I would definitely have been like friends with this person in school. And then this song just speaks to me. So yeah, that. And then I ended up like ordering her merch last week. And now I'm just like praying it comes because it looks like a really comfortable hoodie.
I think that's the beauty, like you were saying, with creativity. It connects with who it needs to connect with.
Yeah,
You know what I
massively.
mean? And what I found, because I write and I make music, and I think just because you're feeling it, it's very likely that someone else in the world is going to be feeling that too.
Yeah.
So it's good to hear that you made that connection. I like that. I suppose it's my go now.
Yep.
In fact, yesterday I heard a song. I was on Instagram and I follow a few music pages, and they had one of those. What are they? You know when you've got like 10 pictures. They had like
Yeah.
10, carousel. I had a carousel of videos, and I saw one song by an artist called Danny Brown. It was called "Grown Up." I'd never heard it before, but I heard this song and I was actually blown away. And it's quite fitting with this podcast by the Youth Board and talking about things that young people are interested in. He was talking about his trials and tribulations growing up, and it was just such a nice beat. So, yeah, man, that's my piece of art that I've taken in this week. Yeah. Cool. I like that. Some interesting things there. I like that book that you mentioned about Dale Carnegie. I'm going to look for that. Have you ever read it? There's a book called Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill as well.
Yeah, I've read that one. It's also very interesting, yeah.
That's a dope book too. Cool. All right, nice. So you've met the Youth Board. You've met myself. Let's move on to the next topic, which is current affairs. So on October the 10th, it's going to be World Mental Health Day. So the official theme for this year is mental health is a universal human right. This was set by the World Federation for Mental Health. So how do you feel about mental health, and how do you feel it's perceived in society? Do you think perceptions are changing?
Oh, that's loaded.
I know, it's a lot.
So, mental health in society is a weird one. So, throughout school, I am the very old age of 22. It seemed like there was a very large boom where all of a sudden everyone woke up overnight and went, I have depression. So then in that phase, you sort of had to figure out what is depression. And you had the older generation go, you're just a bit sad, get over yourself. And then you had the younger generation who didn't really understand and just went, we're all depressed. But I feel like since then, so that's probably 2013-ish, since then, I feel like we've gotten to a good place of balance where a lot of older people are coming around to it in their own sort of way and trying to understand, which is more than we can ask for. And then the younger generation have actually sat down with it and gone, okay, this is what's happening. How do I actually resolve this and also live with it? And yeah, the older generation being more perceptive to it has made that a much easier time.
It was a taboo in where we grew up. You couldn't say that you were struggling mentally because you'll get sectioned or you'll lose your kids or, you know, things of that nature. Whereas I think what's really good now is that's changed. There's an openness now to talk about it, to get what I mean, and engage in the conversations and, you know, try and help manage mental health in a productive, positive way. So I completely hear what you're saying with that, Connor. Have you got any thoughts on it, Shantelle?
Yeah, I think just sort of echoing what you two have said there is like, I think there definitely is a lot more awareness around mental health nowadays, and I think definitely perceptions are changing. And I think with that as well, it is the acceptance and that, you know, it doesn't have to be something that's really, really detrimental to your life. It can just be something that you can work through and you can get help with, you know, like you were saying, it doesn't need to be the be all or end all. And yeah, I think we are making a positive change, and I think that is especially coming with sort of our generation, Connor, sort of Generation Z. Yeah, I think we're sort of making a change on that.
And I think it's always good to have an awareness. I remember my mum used to always say, sometimes it's good to just be aware of something, because when you're aware of something, you're able to manage it a lot better.
Yeah.
So with the fact people are aware of their mental health now, they're able to manage it in ways that suit them. Do you get what I mean? So yeah, I feel that. And if you've got any mental health issues, please visit the Mental Health UK website. That's mentalhealth-uk.org. Can you remember any times where you've had to manage your own mental health? And do you have any advice for those listening or tips that may be able to help them manage their own?
So yeah, I have far too many. Fun fact, I work for the NHS in a mental health service. In the last year, I have spent more time off sick with my mental health than I've actually been at work, which is an interesting fact. But it's seeing it from the NHS side, and I understand it from their side, but there are patients and they need to be moved on from the caseload, and we can't attach ourselves to their personal circumstances. So it's one of those things where you are essentially seen as a number in the system, which is the exact opposite of the help you need for mental health. So then you look at it from the person side of things and you just go, this service doesn't really do what it needs to help, but at the same time, it doesn't have the capacity to actually do what it needs for help. I think the most help I've had is, again, listening to music, because somehow it feels like artists that I listen to understand what I'm going through, despite literally not knowing of my existence. And then just talking to people that I know that have been through similar stuff and actually have an understanding, because a lot of the time, solutions can be from people that don't really understand it, which I've had many of, is just, have you tried going for some exercise? And I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed most days, so not really going to work. But being able to talk to a friend and we just kind of both sit there for a bit and we're just like, yeah, this is not going great for us. Let's just sit and dwell with it for a bit, because sometimes you do need that. Like, it's not always about how can I push through this. It's about sometimes I am going to feel a bit crap today.
Right.
And I can just sort of have that day. But just, for me, it's keeping in that mindset of, today was crap. How can I make tomorrow a little better? And just trying to focus on stuff that's happened has happened. Can't do anything about it. I need to figure out a situation that will mean I am not in this again.
No, I get that. So with that being said, do you think the services provided for young people are fit for young people? Do they work for young people?
No, not in the slightest. And I mean, I remember in school, I think I was about year 8 or year 9, I had like my first counsellor, lovely woman, not helpful in the slightest. My last few, in fact, the first thing she said was, have you tried writing a letter to your parents about the problems? And I'm just like, have you met my parents? That's not going to do anything in my situation. So, but again, it's that stock advice that I understand that that's not helpful. And then because she just couldn't break through to me on a personal level, our last 2 sessions were just like playing noughts and crosses.
Right.
Which, yeah, as a kid, I was like, yeah, I'm not in lesson, this is great. But then for my mental health, it was not the best. And then in college, I had a similar situation where I'd been referred to a service, and then that service came in, gave me a bunch of leaflets for other services, and went, have you tried those?
Right.
And then just left. And I was like, yeah, that was not helpful again.
So have you got any tips or advice for any other young people that might have experienced the same kind of things that you've experienced with mental health services?
I will say, because it's such a personal issue for everyone, as I got into the mindset of therapy's not going to help me because I've tried it 3-4 times and it's not helped. But I went back to it last year and finally found a counsellor that I actually worked quite well with, and it has been a very productive time since then. So I will say, even if you've had bad experiences with some services and some people, it is a thing that you should keep trying with as much as you can until you find the right service, because they are out there. just, can be a pain to find. And if you've engaged with so many services and not had great experiences, your motivation to want to go is going to go drastically down. But I will say, for me and a lot of people I know, it has been quite a transformative thing once we found the right place.
100%. Appreciate you sharing that. Thank you. Have you had any experiences where you've had to manage your mental health, Shantelle?
I think everybody does. I think every single day you have to manage your own mental health, and you have to deal with what life throws at you. So I think it really is something that is, like Connor was saying, it's not something that you can just throw one single approach at and then, it's all fixed. I think it is a very individual process, really, because that's what mental health is. It's a process. It's not just a simple fix. And it often takes like a long time, depending obviously on the severity. But I think the advice would probably be just to try and do something. There's the saying that like 1 is always better than 0. Yeah. So, it's working to try, and maybe today wasn't the best. Maybe something, didn't go your way, or, maybe tomorrow you can improve on that, and maybe, that will be the first step. It's remembering just to look at that sort of first step rather than focusing on the whole staircase. I think that's an important message. And I think that's something that probably I don't actually take my own advice when saying this quite often. I probably am quite hard on myself sometimes in terms of my mental health, and I think a lot of people are, but I think it is just remembering to sort of be patient with yourself, and it's okay, and just take it one day at a time, one step at a time.
100%.
I think one of the points you raised there about mental health, it is a thing you have to manage every day, and it's not just, mental health is brought up when it's always negative connotations to it, but if you don't manage good mental health well, it's very easy to slip into bad mental health. So I think it is something that, you should be mindful of, even if you don't have any sort of struggles or anything on a regular basis. I remember once my dad decided that it'd be a good idea to go, Connor, you don't have any reason to be depressed. And I was like, I mean, A, I don't need any reason. It can just happen. And B, I have more than enough, thanks, Dad. But it is one of those things of, there is a lot of ignorance around, and people can do it to themselves and be critical of, what are my reasons for being in this mindset? And like you say, not being hard on yourself in those times and just going, this is just what I've been dealt, and different brains will process in different ways. So just, like you say, being self-aware is such a powerful tool in managing anything when it comes to it.
Completely agree. Like an awareness.
Yeah.
Being aware that you feel a bit low today. Do you know what I mean? But I think what you said, you touched on a really good point where you have to manage good mental health. And I think it's probably harder to know when you're feeling good in terms of mental health than when you're not, because we're drawn to the negative a lot of the time. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, massively. I mean, I think for me, I can sometimes feel guilty for feeling happy, which is, it's absolutely ridiculous. But like, in those moments though, I do have a mindset of, I need to enjoy this happiness now because it's limited. And just fearing that downfall in itself is not a good mindset to be in. Because there is such a fine line between enjoying the moment and then thinking, I have to enjoy this moment. And as much as we say, think about tomorrow rather than what's gone wrong today, I do also think that just taking a minute to check in with yourself and just go, how am I doing today? What should I be doing at this moment in time? Whether that's like little decisions, and I've been seeing this a lot recently, where they can change your life, where if you get up like 10 minutes earlier and do something as simple as just have breakfast, go on a bit of a walk or something, they can transform your entire day from a day that would have gone from, I'm going to be in bed, maybe watch some Netflix all day and eat some ice cream, to a day where, okay, I've gone out, had this fresh air in the morning, maybe let me go and get some shopping done. Maybe go meet a friend, plan something nice for dinner, bake a cake or something. And just those little things, like we say, that will you can hold on to those, and if you focus on those and have those little victories throughout the day, you can see, okay, I've done 10 things that were good today, and maybe I didn't do this, but I still did 9 things more than that. So
I completely agree, and it goes back to what Chantal was saying. Sometimes you've got to take it step by step.
yeah,
And I think you make a good point about the small successes. It's the small successes, it's millimeters that win games.
Yeah.
You're a football guy. It's the last minute more often than not that where the game will be won, whether someone makes that last ditch tackle.
that Man City goal line clearance against Liverpool.
Do you know
I'll
what I mean?
never forgive him.
Do you know what I mean? So it's millimeters, and I think if you can recognize your small successes, I think is a big help in terms of managing how you feel, if that makes sense. Do you get what I mean? Like even as small as making your bed in the morning, that's a guaranteed win. The first, if you get up and make your bed, you're already 1-0 up.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think there's some good advice there. And I think for me, another one that I'd add in there, like whenever I felt low, is conversation.
Yeah.
Conversation with others. Like this conversation here is helping me because it's shared experience. And what you find when you're sharing experiences, we all have a similar experience. Do you get what I mean? And I think that's important, especially within the field that I work in, like youth work. I think having a chance to sit down with other youth workers, mentors, people that are in the industry and just share skills, experiences, it goes so far. You feel a lot stronger and more solidified in the role that you play in the game of life. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah, massively. And I think, this will lead us on to our next point, but one of the biggest things I found is, particularly in the creative sector, you do have a lot of people with similar experiences, and it's such a vulnerable place to be. Like, I remember when I started writing poetry, I was like, okay, I've written 2 poems. That was nice. I am never going to write again now. Thank you. Well, at the time, I was like, I am a mixed-raced guy that's meant to be into, like, football and chasing girls around the playground. And then I realized I just want to write poetry and just stay inside all the time.
Sorry to cut you in there. You make a great point there. So do you think there's a pressure to fit in with the status quo? So like you said you was a mixed race guy that was tall. You didn't say tall. I was thinking tall. But he was a mixed race guy that should have been into football and chasing girls around the playground.
Yeah.
Do you think that pressure there adds to mental health, but at the same time hinders our creativity?
100%. I think for me, at the time, being in school kids are not very great people, I have to say sometimes. So you get the whole thing of like, I was perfectly fine with writing poetry and things and then going to football on a Saturday. But then I'm like, well, if I tell them I write poetry, then they're going to think that I am not very masculine. And if they think I'm not very masculine, then they're just going to label me gay. And that's going to lead to a whole other host of bullying. So I was like, I'm just going to keep this locked away. And again, even being mixed race and where I grew up, it's going to be like, so why don't you rap? And I'm like, well, 'cause that's just not what I want to do. Just because I'm a brown person that writes rhyming words does not mean I have to rap, thank you. So, yeah, there's a lot of sort of things around that where I felt like I'm going to write this stuff, I'm going to keep it to myself. It helped me process a lot because I didn't speak to people at the time. So I was like, if I write it, it's out of my head at least. It's helped me process it. It can get locked away now. And then the third poem I wrote was after a whole situation with a girl where she was like, why don't you write about what happened between us? And I was like, what a great idea. Ridiculous idea. But here I am years later. And I think it took me about just over a year to start sharing my poetry once I was writing it. And then just the sheer volume of people that acknowledged it and went, I know how you feel. And there was no judgment. And it was so easy to just open up about things that I'd never speak to anyone about. And then, like, I'd meet someone at an open mic and then just pour my heart out, like, 5 minutes after meeting them. And it just felt so natural. And the fact that the creative sector is such a welcoming space for things like that makes it a very, very powerful tool when it comes to managing things like mental health.
Nice, and that leads us on to our next topic, which was, bear with me a sec, what are your thoughts on the role of creativity in managing mental health and well-being? So I think you've kind of touched on it, and was looking at, do you think we should be looking at more creative ways in maintaining our own mental health? So I think you make a valid point about how creativity works for you, Connor, in terms of the perception I get from what you're saying. It's like a shield. Do you get what I mean?
Yeah.
And when you're in the right spaces, it's your passport. Do you know what I mean? To I don't know, an elite group. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
creativity and draws different people from different walks of life.
Yeah.
Do you get what I mean? And I think that's the importance of life, meeting and sharing experiences. That's just me with my hippie hat on. Do you know what I mean? But, Shantelle, how do you think creativity has a role in managing mental health? Has there been a time when you use creativity?
Yeah, 100%. I think creativity definitely plays a role in mental health and managing mental health. I think, you know, it's very common knowledge, I think, that often mental health is signposted to things like drawing or painting or sculpture and, you know, all of these different creative outlets. And I think that's because the creative industries and hobbies, I suppose, as a whole, lend themselves very naturally, I think, to that emotional side where you can just express yourself, and it's sort of, it is a place, like Connor's mentioned, of no judgment in a way, and it's very expressive and people relate, and it's a nice community, I think, that the creative arts have, especially around mental health.
What I found, because I'm a creator myself, like I make music, like I rap, and I'm mixed race. But yeah, what I found is once you start becoming creative, it opens up a new world for you. Do you get what I'm saying? Like you see others and you're seen. Do you get what I mean? And I think it's important. I think we all want to be seen. But the what's even stranger is most of the people I've met I suppose it's not stranger, but most of the people I've met have got into being creative or rap, let's say, or writing music because they were in a place of struggling with their mental health. Do you know what I mean? So it's like, as a creative, it's quite a common theme to be aware of our mental health, because more often than not, we go to our creative outlets when we're in a period of maybe struggling with our mental health. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Massively. I mean, so I think, like, it is, like you say, a space where, cause, I mean, there's things that I would never have thought I'd share, and then I've, like, wrote a poem about it and then performed it, and then all of a sudden I'm in a conversation about this poem, and I'm just like, it does feel natural to share those things in those spaces where, and, like, the thing is, there's people that you see in a creative space, and obviously, to an extent, we all judge people on looks. And throughout school specifically, there was very specific groups. So you had, like, your popular kids, you had, like, your, like, nerds and stuff, which is where I fit. And then you had, like, your football guys. And then even, like, races tended to stick more to each other and things. And then you just get into a creative sector where all of that's out the window. And it's just like, I mean, I still, like, play football and enjoy doing that side of things. And then I meet people that are just like, yeah, so I do dance and stuff, and I don't care for football in the slightest or have anything else in common with you. But because we both have the mindset of a creative person, something just instantly clicks. And, like, the connections I've made in the creative world compared to connections I make outside of it just don't resonate the same. And that's not to say that my other friendships or relationships are bad with those people, but I feel like there's just a level of relationship that creativity can bring you to that isn't accessible in another way.
So would you say that like creativity helps us in, because you know what it is, we're talking about creativity as a separate entity to life. Do you get what I mean? So it's outside of the everyday living. So what I'm saying is, do you think creativity has an impact on how we live our lives every day?
Yes, massively.
I agree. I think so too. I think creativity has given me that confidence to take the leap sometimes. when I feel nervous, just go for it. Do you know what I mean? Because there's been many a times where I've been petrified to go on stage, and it's the best thing that I've ever done.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So I think we have to lean more into taking those leaps. You got to go all in sometimes. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think a big thing for me is just like growing up, I was like very, very scared of ever being on stage or having any sort of focus on me. And this is why, for me, I talk about them as two separate entities in terms of normal and then creative world. Because in the normal world, I am still like, if the self-service is out of order, I will walk straight back out of this shop because I am not ready for social interaction today. But then if you asked me in that same moment, like, do you want to go on stage and perform to 100 people? I'd be like, yeah, sure, I'm like perfectly fine to do that. So I feel like there is a weird separation between...
What stops you from merging the two? Sorry, I'm dissecting your brain now, Connor. Like, what stops you merging the two? Because one's way more daunting than the other, and you jump at the one that's way more daunting.
I think for me, it's a case of when I'm performing, I'm like, the poetry is the focus, and as much as that poetry is me at sort of my rawest and most vulnerable, it still acts as some sort of shield there. So when I'm performing, there's the me that's on stage and then the me that's sort of behind the scenes of it all. And the me behind the scenes of it all doesn't like talking to people a lot of the time and like regular socializing. But I'm like, when I'm performing, I'm like, this is still me, but it's like a weird separation where this kind of feels like a persona.
Yeah, it's like that the me that doesn't want to use the self-service is still on stage, but it's hiding behind, for lack of a better word, behind the performer.
Yeah.
And it's really the same person though.
Oh yeah, 100%. But like the interesting thing is, like, when I share my poetry with people, there's two reactions that I have gotten, and it's they focus on the writing and they're really happy with that, and they're like, wow, this is a great poem. And then there's the people that I'm closer to that understand it that go, what happened to you? And I was just like, okay, well, this is what the poem's actually about. And I think when you have that sort of thing as well, I'm like, I know that I can perform this to a room, and there may be like 5 people out of 50 that will get it and relate to it. And for those people, I want that to happen, and I'd love to talk to them and understand why they relate to it and just be able to have those open conversations. And then for the other 45 people in that room, I'm just like, I'm glad you've heard a good poem. But yeah, when it comes to like normal interaction, I'm like, I just have to be me. And if anything goes wrong, it goes wrong. But audience perception to performers as well is very different.
I used to feel like that, but like I was saying about implementing that creative thing, whatever it is, the X factor, implementing that in my life, it kind of you kind of look at it from a different perception. So what I'm saying with you are still, you're the guy that performs and you're the guy that doesn't want to talk, but the same, you can choose either one. So even just because you're not performing on stage doesn't mean you're not that person still. Do you get what I mean?
True.
You still have that's still you. Do you know what I mean? But I know what it's like as a performer, so I'm going on at you, but we all go through its experience, I suppose.
Yeah, that's the thing. I feel like there is a lot of, if I can do this, then why can't you do this? And it's like, I feel like, again, coming back to mental health, there is a lot of that, and a lot of people mean well, but because of just the lack of understanding, or they're like, well, this worked for me, so why wouldn't it work for you? And I remember once I had a line manager who, she had a meeting with me, and I was talking a bit about my mental health, and then she went, I know what you mean. I get stressed too sometimes. And I was like, yeah, you really don't know what I mean. So from that point on, I was just kind of like, I knew that wasn't really the space to share, because I was like, I know she means well, but at those times, it's just like, you don't understand me, and what you're saying is actually kind of making things worse. So yeah, there are moments like that where I'm just like, it can be a lot of meaning well, but again, this is why I don't think services can do the greatest job, because they don't have the capacity or time to learn who you are on an individual level.
Do you think there's a lack of experience there? So, for example, this is just my POV. I might get hung for this, but I feel midwives would probably be better at their job if they'd had children in life. Do you know what I mean? Just because of the experience of having children. I'm not saying that midwives can't be midwives without children, but I think they'd probably be better if they'd had experience with children, innit? So there should be a balance in the workforce, I suppose, innit?
I'm 100% in agreement. I think that if you've lived it, then even if, because again, like with my depression, I could talk to another person that's got depression and we could be completely different. And like they can get a lot of energy off of being around their friends, for example. Me, if I'm not having a great day, I'm headphones in, not talking to anyone. So yeah, just having that understanding of I need to know what works for this specific person in this specific circumstance. And I think a difficult thing for people that haven't been through it is that they don't understand. And a lot of the time, my mental health frustrates me because I'm like, there's still a lot I don't understand about it. Sometimes I just want to be alone, listen to my music, maybe play a game. Other times I'm like, I could really do with a hug and a milkshake. And I'm like, I don't know when those times are. I can feel exactly the same one day, want a milkshake, feel the same the next day, and then just need to be alone. So it can be a confusing one for ourselves as well, which is why I think it's also quite the impossible task if you've not been through it to then try and understand something that we also don't understand.
Or even just, I want to get Shantelle to have a view on this, but even just, I forgot what I was going to say. Sorry, Shantelle. So, do you feel like your creative practice, that X factor, that thing that makes a difference, do you think that has an impact in your everyday life in terms of how you conduct yourself, maybe?
Yeah, so I think it was very interesting. I was sort of just letting you two have like a moment because obviously Connor led the Mental Health Without Walls Day, so I feel like he has a lot to talk about on this topic. But definitely the point about having like a persona, like you were saying, the person who goes on stage is very different to the person who is in, just in Tesco. And I think that definitely does apply to me. So I sort of have a stage name you get, I guess you could say.
What is it?
Shanimation.
Okay, Shanimation, I like that.
Yeah, so I have that, and I've had this, like, this has just been my identity, I guess, since I was like 14. And that is really, like, it has definitely helped me, like, going through, whatever it may be, sort of through, school, then college, and then apprenticeships, and then jobs. It's just thinking, like, yeah, I'm Shanimation, like, I've got this, I can do this, and it really is, it is a mental game, I think, and it is something that is difficult to differentiate between like your normal self in the normal world and in the creative world. But I think having that belief in yourself, which I think is, for me personally, has been very powerful, and I think it's a powerful technique that anyone can use, because it is challenging. So you've got to have that backing, and other people don't particularly understand a lot of the time. Like they're supporting you and they're by your side, but really you're the only one who can do anything for yourself in this world. So it is sort of creating that energy and that motivation and that confidence within yourself. So yeah, and I think that definitely has helped me through what I do.
Thank you, Shantelle. I really like that.
I know from talking to you previously that you routinely, as a lot of creatives are, were just told, no, you can't do this throughout school, and here's the many, many reasons why. So I feel like imposter syndrome has to be touched on here, of the amount of times it's been drilled into us throughout school where if something needs cutting, it's like the music lesson that gets cut or the art lesson that gets cut. And like, for me, I'm just like, the amount of things I've done in the poetry world earlier on, I in a better place with it now, but I was like, why am I getting this opportunity? So, like, what's your thoughts on imposter syndrome and just being in that world?
I think it's a difficult one. I think it is something that a lot of people struggle with. I think imposter syndrome, not even just in the creative industries, but just in everyday life. But for me, personally, like I said, I've sort of had this persona and I've been working like on my mindset since I was like 14, pretty young. And I think I do sometimes, get like questioning myself and, thinking, is this any good? Can I do this? But then it really is just taking a step back. And I think there's so much value in just looking at what you've already achieved, looking at what you've already done. Last year, I decided to spontaneously book a flight to America on my own and spend a month traveling, which is something that I had never done before, never thought I would do. But now, sort of whenever I get sort of nervous about something or think, I can't do that, I just think, well, you got on a plane and you travel to the other side of the world with no real plan. So
yeah, 100%. And I think that there is the key to that. You've done it before, so so for me, my confidence since I started performing has gone up. Like I can talk to people. There was a time I wasn't able to conversate with people, but there's a confidence there now to where I was nervous before I came down here today. I was like, oh my days, how am I going to do this? But then I just locked into, when I go and perform on stages in front of people, do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I've bust in town in front of people, and it was fine. So you just tap into that energy. So I think I really can, not empath, that's not the word. I can identify with what you're saying there. That's why I was asking the question, is there something from your creative practice that you use in your normal life to get through? Do you know what I mean? And it's having that faith, I think, that belief in your system. And a lot of the time when we're doing creative things, it's a very lonely road.
Yeah.
We do this alone. So I rap, so I've got a few guys that come with me and whatnot. They might come to the event with me, but it's me that has to go on stage and perform. They get to watch and drink and chill, and do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I think when you're creative, there's a lot of lonely time and you're alone with your thoughts. Yeah. So I think it's important to be aware of those feelings that we have, checking in with ourselves. And I think it's also important to be aware that maybe I just need to feel this right now. Sometimes we just got to be. Just be, rather than thinking about the past or what's coming. It's easier said than done, but sometimes it's a case of just trying to be, do you know what I mean? And just find those moments to just unplug, because life is fast-paced. And it's 100 miles an hour every day.
The thing I found beautiful, and you touched on it earlier, Levi, was when you said that a lot of the times it's poor mental health that's driven us to the creative practice that we use. And I'm like, a lot of the times I have framed it to myself of, I have depression, it's not going anywhere anytime soon. How can I use this? So like you say, anytime I'm low, I'm like, what poem can I produce right now? And I'm just like, it's a weird thing to say, but like managing to turn my negative mental health into something that's been successful for me is actually, it's an empowering thing in both managing your mental health and going, my mental health doesn't have to define me. And there are, in a very weird way, there are positives to every situation, and that can come even in poor mental health.
And it's perceptions, I suppose, and it's how you look at a scenario. I think I completely agree with that. Do you get what I'm saying? You make some good points there, man. Some real good points. So there are experiences in creativity and what role it can play. I think it's important to have these conversations, though. Do you know what I mean? Especially for young people, because, like we were just saying, it's quite lonely sometimes when you're dealing with your mental health. Yeah. And being young, you're still trying to fit in and get used to life, I suppose. Yeah. And you're struggling with, like you were saying earlier on, fitting in with the status quo or doing what is you. Do you get what I mean? And I think creativity helps us be more comfortable in who we are rather than what the status quo is. Do you know what I mean? I'm happy to be outside the box. I love being outside the box. I would rather be outside the box. You lot can stay over there and do that. And sometimes there's got to be a balance there. I don't know if that's my fear of rejection or the fact that I'm confident in my own skin. I'm happy in my own skin. You know what I mean?
My logic's always been, I'm just like, I've lost many friends. I'm just like, I always thought, if I go into this interaction of first meeting someone at my worst, if they stick around, it's only uphill from here. So, but that sort of developed into my theory of, if people want to leave, let them. because then there'll be people that want to stay that will actually be worth investing your time in, and they will invest that same time into you. And I think like a lot of people our age, Shantelle, they're just like, yep, I have been out 3 days drinking this week and it's been great, and I have had my group of 20 friends. And I'm like, when you break that down, who's there in 5 years though?
I get that, but you've got to remember it's all experience. So you can't really knock the person that wants to go out and drink a few times a week, because it's experience, and they may get to a point where it's not about that. Like when I went to university, I was out there. It was like Butlins. I felt like university was like, you know, them seaside resorts where it's clubbing all the time. But you grow out of certain things as you progress through life. It's all experiences.
It's not like, if you want to do that, if you're happy doing that, that's fine. But because that's such a big thing in the culture, if you don't want to do that,
that's fine
then
too.
don't. That's the thing. Like, I know a lot of people have been pulled into it that do it just because they're scared of losing those friends and things. And I'm like, all of my friends now, if I go, should we play board games tonight? They'll go, yeah, I'm in. Like, finding those people that you can share those things with, rather than, like you say, thinking, oh, if everyone else is drinking at this age, I need to go do this. If everyone else is going to this, I need to do this. And it's just like you say, being happy with what you want to do and focusing in on that is such a key thing.
Hindsight's a beautiful thing though, isn't it?
Massively.
I suppose you've got to grow and mature in life, I suppose. And I think that's what's probably the most difficult for young people, because they're expected to know what they want to do. They're expected to be matured without actually having the opportunities to make the errors and grow, or go through experiences and mature. Do you get what I mean? So, and like you said, like you've got to a point now where the people that you're around, it's like-minded. It's a small echo chamber. Do you get what I'm saying? And I think there's got to be balance there. But any final comments on mental health and creativity, Shantelle? Any final words?
I think we've pretty much summed it up. I think through all the conversation we've had, it's been really interesting just to sort of delve into different areas and different topics. And yeah, it's interesting. It makes you reflect definitely on yourself and sort of what you could do maybe to improve yourself.
What about you, Connor? Any final words?
I think, again, I've taken this as a sort of, it's like recently I've been in a bit of a rough patch, and like I've been ill and things as well. So like you say, the physical and the mental are much more linked than people say. So I've just taken this today as my sort of check-in, and again, being able to talk to like-minded people, it's been healthy for me, and it's also reminded me of practices that I should be doing to manage a little better.
That's cool, man. Thank you for that. Appreciate that. So yeah, that's the end of our mighty podcast on mental health. Just a reminder, October the 10th is World Mental Health Day, and the official theme for this year's event is Mental Health is a Universal Human Right. This was set by the World Federation for Mental Health, and I completely agree with that. And my final thoughts are mental health is no different to physical health. You need to maintain both, and they're very dynamic. And let me just signpost you. So if you have any mental health questions, like more info, any issues that you may have, please visit the Mental Health UK website at mentalhealth-uk.org. Thank you very much. My name's Levi Knight, Youth Programme Coordinator for the Mighty Creatives.
I've been Connor Brown, Youth Board Member.
And I've been Shantelle York, Youth Board Member.
Thank you very much. You've been great, and we'll see you next time. Before we go, actually, want to end it with a question, guys. Thought it was over, didn't you? Nah. Right, so what I want to ask is, if you could give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? We'll start with you, Shantelle.
Take it one day at a time. I think it's so easy, I think particularly for myself, to get so bogged down and so ahead of myself thinking about where I want to be in a year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Just enjoy the moment a bit, take the time, just be grateful for where you're at, because you never know what's going to come tomorrow.
Love that.
Yeah, similar thing for me, and it's just start today. That's what I need to get better at myself now. But like, I want to start going to the gym, and I'm like, it could be so easy for me to go, we're getting close to New Year's, I can go to the gym then. But it's just, if you want to do something, just do it now. Because
100%.
you might not get that opportunity. So just go for it.
I love that. And my advice would be, just go and do it, man. Do you know what I mean? Go and have a go. It doesn't matter. You've got so much time to try it, not like it, and do something else. Do you know what I mean? The world isn't finite. Do you get what I'm saying? So do whatever you'd like to do, and be grateful from where you started at day one. I think sometimes we get to a point where we feel like we're not moving, but you got to remember where you started at day one. And yeah, this time we're actually saying bye. So thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time on the Mighty Podcast. Goodbye.